Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our second in a series of Plain Talk Crop Insurance for Livestock Risk Management Strategy. I'm Ruth Hamilton, your host for today's program, How Crop Insurance Can Help You with Marketing Decisions. Before we get into the program, I want to share a few words about Annie's Project. Annie's Project is a 501c3. We are in our 21st year of developing and delivering educational programs for farm and ranch women across the United States. Our mission is to empower women in agriculture to be successful through education networks and resources like today's program. While our mission revolves around women, our programs are open to anyone interested in the topics we offer. You'll be able to submit your questions and comments anytime via the chat located on your navigation bar. So if you want to take a second to look for that. And this project is made possible through the cooperative agreement between the United States Department of Agriculture Risk Management Agency and Annie's Project Agreement Number RMA 23CPT0013617. And now to introduce our speaker is Carisha Devlin, co-CEO of Annie's Project. Carisha?
Thank you, Ruth. It's a pleasure to see everyone here tonight. I'm glad to have you join our webinar. It's my honor to be able to introduce our speaker tonight, Toni Dunker. Toni and I have known each other for several years now. I won't go into exactly how many years. Now it's turning into decades, I think, Toni. Toni is a great speaker, very knowledgeable about marketing. And every time I listen to one of her presentations, I definitely have an opportunity to brush up my skills or learn something new. So you all are in for a treat tonight. Toni is an ag risk management advisor with Advanced Trading, Inc., and she's located in Quincy, Illinois. She's a licensed Series 3 and 30 broker, as well as a licensed livestock risk protection insurance agent. She obtained her bachelor's degree from Western Illinois University, specializing in agriculture marketing, and her master's degree is from the University of Illinois in ag education. She spent the last 24 years developing and implementing marketing plans with livestock and grain farming operations. So Toni, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carisha. Thank you, Ruth. I know we have spent a lot of hours together. I think we all have something very, very much in common in our heart, and that is to help educate others and be a resource for those people as they make their way along this path. And so, Ruth, especially to you, since you kind of started this whole thing, and then Carisha brought me along as well. So I'm very appreciative for everything that you have done to empower women and help them make better decisions and be better business people as they go along their path. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. And, you know, I want to talk with you essentially about marketing, and I want to talk with you about how important it is to have a good crop insurance plan to build your marketing program from. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. Everyone comes in here with different backgrounds, with different levels of experience in marketing. And when I talk about marketing, I'm talking about selling those goods and products that you are growing. And so I'm essentially going to talk about much of it's going to be about grain marketing tonight, but we can also talk about some livestock marketing avenues as well. Everything that I'm going to present to you tonight is going to be based from Chicago Board of Trade, Chicago Mercantile Exchange prices, and how that impacts your local cash price that you would receive for grain and livestock. And so I always have to throw up the disclaimer. I can just share with you right now that I do not know what this market is going to do. You can ask me 20 different ways, and you can ask me until you're blue in the face. And I can tell you that with every minute that goes by, there is something else that changes what that price is, and it's something that we probably don't even think about. So with all of that said, I just want to jump right in here and get rolling, because what's going to happen tonight is we're going to give you exposure to tools that are available to you. We're going to give you, ideas on how to build a marketing plan and how important crop insurance is to building that marketing plan. And to a lot of us, marketing feels like, what this guy is experiencing right now. All of those things coming at you. But here's what I'm going to share with you tonight. We need to make this simple. Don't overthink marketing. It's as simple as getting out your piece of paper and your pencil and sitting down and writing out what you're going to produce, and then coming up with a plan to best market that. And so I want to talk with you about tools that are available to you to utilize right alongside of your crop insurance that you take to protect those crops while you're growing them. So with all that said, I'm just going to jump right into this. These are some highlights that we've had over the last week. As Kayla shares an office here with me, Kayla Walker. As we walk out and do our meetings this time of the year, one of the things that we talk about are all of the pieces of the puzzle that are impacting what's going on with the prices. And obviously last week when I put this presentation together, all of these things were going on. It changed by the minute. And, we can go back to 2 weekends ago when a tariff was put into place against Colombia. And the markets weren't open when that happened, but the market jitters started well before then. And, we saw that remedied within hours of it happening. And so it's so all over the place. And you see these headlines that are up there today, those are all things that are, giving us risk in the marketplace, whether we're growing livestock or we're growing grain. Everything outside of our world also impacts our world. And so we have to get control, and hopefully the tools that we're going to walk you through here expose you to. I can't say that I can teach you how to do this in one night, in 1 hour, but what I'm going to do is give you exposure so that you can go out and you can find help to put your marketing plan together. So you see all of these different headlines, and obviously we know there's been a lot going on. Even over the weekend, we started out looking like we were going to have a 25% tariff put in place against Mexico and Canada, and a 10% tariff placed against China. And so with all of those headlines happening, when the market opened Sunday night, and also on Friday before it closed, we were having risk off is what we would call that. And the markets were lower in anticipation of what was going to come out over the weekend. And lo and behold, we get into the weekend and things happened at a very fast pace. Sunday night when we came in, when the markets opened at 7 o'clock Central Time, we were down again hard in anticipation that there was, problems ahead of us, especially when it comes to agriculture products in our world of exports. And so we were down because of that. And, as things unfolded, if you've been watching the news, within hours of that Mexico tariff, on Monday morning, once that was resolved or at least delayed for 30 days, then we saw the markets turn around and start to go to the plus side. It was kind of we always call that buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of a thing. And that's essentially what happened. But what the market anticipated Sunday night did not actually happen. If it had happened, where would that price be at today? We have so much headline risk in our markets today that we have to get in control, and we have to get in front of what's going on so that, we don't get emotional as the market moves against us instead of in our favor. So you can see these were headlines from last week, Now I'm going to just flip this forward. And I pulled out this slide because if you look through all of those things, we've got bird flu on there. We've got world crop size. We've got drought. We've got hedge funds. We've got congressional fuel mandates. We've got all of these different things that are in those bubbles. And believe it or not, this is a slide that I used for an Annie's group back in 2009. So figure it out. The things that are on this slide still today are in there. And so it's never ending, that headline risk that is out there. It's just that we are more exposed to it today because of social media, because of, what is going on out there with the media and their coverage of those things. So I thought it was really interesting, and I wanted to throw that slide in there just to tell you that this isn't going to go away anytime soon. And so you should just be prepared for the fact that we're going to continue to see our prices move because of headlines that are outside of our world. So, I threw this slide in there last week when I was putting this together just to talk about the importance of trade. And if you look at our top 10 trading partners in 2024, Mexico, China, and Canada, the top three. And when we look at corn in particular, it is Mexico, Japan, and Colombia. And so when that news came out 2 weekends ago about Colombia and a potential tariff being placed there, I was like, wow, we've got Mexico and we've got Colombia, and they're two of our top three. That is definitely going to impact that price of corn because this year in particular, we're exporting a lot of corn bushels out of this country. That has been what is boosting the price of corn. That's one of the pieces that's been boosting the price of corn. So the fact that we have this tariff situation and what's coming down the road at us, it will have an impact on our prices. Now, as we look forward, the things that are happening, it's in the news, it happens, it goes away. But the whole fact of the matter is we're in the bushel business. And so we're here, we're going to grow these bushels. And if we don't grow those bushels, we've got an insurance product that is backing us. And so these two pieces of the puzzle, having that crop insurance to back us, along with having a marketing plan that works with that crop insurance, that's what guarantees you bushels so that you can forward price them going down the road. Okay? So I want to jump into a little bit of just some fundamentals on what's going on in the marketplace, because I think it's important for you to understand why the market is moving like it is. So on January 10th, we had a final year report come out for that 2024 production, what we harvested over the fall and what's been put away in the bins. And so it was a surprise. It was a surprising report in that the bushel amounts that the USDA recorded actually came in lower than what the trade had been anticipating. And we had backed those bushel amounts off from basically, we had a very better outlook on what those bushels were going to be in the September and then again in the October, November timeframes. And then when we get to the end and when they tally up all the bushels, we come in with corn being less than what they thought it was going to be. And so if you look down on this slide under corn, you will see that yield number. And the yield actually came in January at 179.3 bushel an acre across the country. They were anticipating that to be 182.7. That was the anticipated number, and it came in at 179.3. And so that was 3.8 bushel an acre less than what they thought it was going to be. Likewise on beans, the number actually came in at 50.7 bushel per acre, and the trade was anticipating 51.6 bushel an acre. So that was a pleasant surprise from the perspective of pricing. And that made the markets rally as we came out of that report, and we've continued to rally. For those of you that are in, corn growers and bean growers in the Midwest in particular, we were anticipating that we had a good crop in many areas, but we also knew that there were some problem areas that existed out there. Part of the other piece of this equation was once this product started to dry down out in the field, it dried down rapidly. Beans dropped in moisture, corn dropped in moisture, and by the time harvest wrapped up completely, there was less bushels there, partly because the moisture was lower on the finished harvested bushels. And so that kind of played into this picture as well. Some of the other numbers that were important that came out of that January 10th report also included our carryout number. And since we had less bushels than what we thought, our carryout shrunk a little bit. And so in the big picture of things, that January 10th year-end report was a very good boost to these prices. The other things that came out in that report are how we are using these bushels. And so some of the good news came from our use, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. This next slide I want to visit with you about is U.S. and world corn stocks to use. And I think, for someone that's just getting started, maybe looking at marketing documents, one of the very important numbers to look at and to do a comparison to history is stocks to use. The red line in this chart is the United States stocks to use number. And you can see we dropped that back from 11.8% in the 23-24 crop down to 10.2%. Now, we're not running out of bushels, okay? So I don't want you to think we're going to run out of bushels because we're using them all up. But the pile of corn that's out there to use from is smaller than what it had been anticipated, and it's smaller than where it was at last year. And it tends to be once it gets below that 10% stocks to use, we start to see a little more volatility in the price where the price will take off and run higher. And so you can see back in 2021, we were down to 8.3%. 21-22, we were at 9.2%. We continued to grow that pile to 9.9%, then up to 11.8%. We just weren't using as much as what we were growing in those years where we grew that. This year, we used more. We're actually exporting more, and that's helping us out. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is this green line. And this green line shows us the world stocks to use. So all of the corn bushels in the world and how we use them, okay? And you're going to see there that that number also dropped down to 23.8% on the stocks to use. That gets us back to a number of when we were coming out of the drought back in 2012. And that was a very, very tight situation where we got to in 2010 and 11 because we were really ramping up ethanol use back in 2005 to 2010. And then we had a drought year in 2010 and 2011. And so you saw those stocks to use really get drawn down in that time frame. So when we look at world stocks to use, the fact that Brazil last year did not grow as big of a crop as what we needed them to, essentially, and then we pulled our number back just a little bit this time, we've tightened up that world stocks to use number. And so that's something to keep in mind. It's not just what we're doing here in this country and what we're producing here in this country. It's what's getting produced all around the world. So we are one of a handful of major corn exporters, and that's what I'm talking about here. When we look at Brazil and we look at the United States, we look at Argentina, we can look at South Africa, we can look at the Ukraine. All of those countries are major corn exporters. And so you see how tight this black line is. We've really tightened up this stocks to use for the rest of the world. And so that's really, really important. For those of you that are in the Midwest and are in corn production and in bean production, if you had a good crop, I would ask you back in, August, would you have thought that we could rally corn 50 cents coming out of harvest? Would you have thought that we could rally beans for over $1 coming out of harvest? We have, even though we didn't grow a bad crop nationwide, it just wasn't as big as what we thought it was going to be. Corn exports, they've been very important to our price this year. I threw this slide in. There's a document out on Farm Doc, the University of Illinois Farm Doc website that you can access. And this was published about 2 weeks ago. And it's a really good article talking about our exports and where they go to. And I would encourage you to look up that article. It's not a real long one, but it shows you, it shares with you, how we are using corn and who our buyers are when we export corn. But this picture in particular just shows corn exports by the United States in the blue line and corn exports by Brazil in the green line. And you can see back here in 2020 and 2021 how tight that Brazil number was as far as what they were exporting. They have continued to grow, and in 2023 they exported more corn bushels than what we did here in the United States. Now, I will tell you some information about Brazil and what's going on down there right now. They are in their first crop harvest right now. It's running a little bit behind, but they are making progress. And it looks like we will have a record crop on beans that come out of Brazil for this first harvest. The important thing to note is they're a little bit behind in how that plays into their corn exports. Their second crop, or their safrinha crop, is the crop that they would export on corn. And so the fact that they're getting delayed just a little bit on that second crop, getting it planted right now, it may play into their exports late summer. So they would normally harvest that crop and it would become a crop that they could export in that July timeframe, July-August timeframe. And so if they can export corn, a lot of times it will displace our corn exports, just like what's going on with beans right now. As they're harvesting beans, our big time to export beans out of this country really falls in that October, November, December, and the early part of January, because their bean crop that they can export comes online or starts coming online January, February, March. And so you'll see when that happens, our export numbers drop dramatically and their export numbers pick up. All of these things that I'm talking about are just showing you, how worldwide your price is. All right, just a quick slide here. This is showing us unshipped corn exports. With the anticipation of trade issues coming up, we've seen many countries front-end loading their purchases of both corn and beans, and the meats as well. We've seen, Mexico taking, saying that they were going to take bushels, corn bushels in particular. And so when you look at this, you can see that Western Hemisphere, that blue bar, these are unshipped corn export sales. They've said they were going to take them. They've bought the corn. It just hasn't shipped yet. And so even though it doesn't make sense, this is what can happen. If those bushels have not been shipped yet, they can actually cancel their purchases. And so that's been a concern to this corn market. So far this year, and the marketing year for grains actually starts September 1st, and it runs to August 31st. And so far this year, this number for 24-25 is representing the unshipped sold corn bushels, okay? We've been seeing Corn exports go at a good clip, and you can see 24-25 is ranking right up there with where we were at in 2021. So that's a good solid number to have corn sold at. It just hasn't all shipped yet. Partly because of logistics, partly because they just didn't need it yet. But they've spoken for it, and they said we're going to buy these bushels. Now, if a tariff gets put into place starting March 1st, we will see bushels get canceled. So that's something else to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Renewable fuel is another area of corn use in our country. And thus far, we're still waiting on what that program is going to look like. We were told last year in February, March, we were down at Commodity Classic, and it was supposed to be unveiled down there when we were at Commodity Classic, and they didn't do it. And so we just kept getting fed a little bit, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, we were told, a week before the administration changed that, well, here's the guidance on it, but it really didn't outline anything. And so we're still waiting on renewable fuels standards and what the 45Z tax implications are going to be for utilizing things like ethanol or biodiesel. It just hasn't been released. And so now it's kind of up in the air. So there's another piece to that puzzle on corn prices that's just waiting out there to find out what we're going to use. All of these things that I'm telling you about could make the corn price go higher, can make corn price go lower, depending on how it gets unfolded. One last thing I want to bring up on corn before I switch to beans here. I want to talk about farmer selling this year. Last year, farmer selling on corn bushels was very delayed. There was a number of reasons why. Partly because they probably didn't need the income coming in yet. And so they were more likely to sit and wait on a better price last year on that 2023 crop. And a lot of those bushels actually ended up coming to town in July and August. And we all knew that those bushels were out there. I mean, everybody knows how many bushels we've produced, but they haven't been marketed yet. And so with that in mind, that corn price just kept ratcheting lower and lower and lower in July and August because they knew the bushels were out there. Nobody was hungry for those bushels. And so that price just got, lower and lower going into the end of August. Then we turned it around and we started to rally it when we figured out, maybe we need more bushels because we're using them. So this rally that we have seen, and essentially we saw the bottom put in August and September, and then we started to rally the price of corn. But we've really rallied in some places on cash bushels over 70 cents a bushel. And maybe even more than that from the time we were in our, the middle part of harvest. And so with all of that, the farmer has been a very active seller earlier than normal. And that's what this chart is taking a look at. We don't really know how much of the crop that they have sold, but we feel like for this time of the year, they may have sold 50, 60, or maybe even more than that % of the bushels that they have grown. And you can see that on this chart, it talks about the usage compared to what the farmer has sold, okay? And so it's kind of interesting. We don't know if these exports will continue because we don't know if the tariffs will get put in place and we will have cancellations happen. We do not know what's going to come down the road at us from a renewable fuels standard, how other ways we can use this corn product. And the other thing that we don't know, how many acres we're going to plant and what does that yield look like coming down the road at us. So all of those unknowns. That's the reason why you have to have a marketing plan. I just want to talk about beans for just a minute or two so you can also understand that picture. Again, the same type of a chart. This is a stocks to use. How many beans do we have versus what we will use them for? And so this red line is looking at the United States stocks to use. The green line is world stocks to use. And the blue one is the world without China's stocks. And it's been interesting. China is actually stockpiling beans right now. They have pulled their bean purchases forward, but they are also not using at as fast of a pace as what they normally have because their economy is not as good. China has been one of our largest, they are our largest bean exporter. And for a long time, we exported more beans out of this country than we actually used here domestically. So this picture, again, just kind of tells you where we're at. The interesting thing is, unlike corn, we're not shrinking the pile of beans. We actually added to the pile of beans this year. So we've got more beans than we will use, and we've got more than what we have been using, if that makes sense. I want to talk about Brazil and Argentina for just a minute. Brazil is in harvest. They're progressing along, but the important thing to look at is they're actually probably going to produce a record crop coming out of Brazil on bean production. That is that first crop that they grow. Then once they get this harvested, they're going right in behind it and planting corn as a second crop. Okay? So we talk about two different crops down there, and this is where they're at right now. They are harvesting beans. Those beans will get exported. They will get used domestically. And then on top of this harvest, they are following right along with the planter and planting corn as a second crop. So we're looking at a record crop coming out of Brazil. Argentina, there's been some issues there. They're in a very critical time right now. They're being forecasted to see some rains in that middle part of Argentina right now, this Cordoba area. And that's an important area when it comes to soybean production. We already feel like that crop has been hurt. It's been dry and it's been hot. And so it feels like right now they are not going to grow as big of a crop. That probably plays more into soybean meal prices than it does bean or bean oil. Okay, so some things to kind of keep in mind there. This is what the South American supply of soybeans look like in their crop year. And you can see they export, their export markets just continue to grow. That red line is the exports, and then the green line is what they crush. It is also growing. It's just not growing as rapidly as what they export. But their supply is probably increasing, and that stocks to use number out of Brazil is going to get bigger because they're growing more beans than what they're using or exporting. It's a different picture on beans than it is in corn. All right. Here's China, and here's what they use. And the green line is their soybean imports. Their purple line is what they use, and then their ending stocks. And you can see how dramatically their ending stocks have grown since 2021. They've been buying them, storing them. And so they don't grow many soybeans over there, and they obviously use a lot more than what they grow. Here's our domestic consumption on soybeans in the United States, and we've continued to become more reliant on using the beans that we grow, which I think is a great thing. We're less reliant on exporting those beans and relying on China to be a big taker of them. And if you look right back here into 2021, you'll see that was the first year that we actually crushed more soybeans than what we exported. 2020, that was, that was 2021. Then you see 2022, 2023, and 2024, it's continued to grow. And I think that's a great thing. You know, we've built more plants. We've built more plants out west. to use those beans rather than us having to rely on exports to give us a supportive price on soybeans. It's really important what comes down the road out of the government program on the biofuels. All right. All right. Here's another picture of the United States versus Brazil on exports. And you can see back in 2010, we were exporting more beans than what Brazil was. And that continued to change. And then it's flipped, and it flipped pretty dramatically here in about 2015, 16, 17. And then 2018 was the trade war that we had with China. And they essentially stopped taking beans from us in 2018 for a while until the trade deal was put into place. All right. So I've just given you all of the reasons why it's important to have a marketing plan. Now I want to talk about how do I build that marketing plan and what are some of the tools that I can use. So I like this slide. It just says you make money in the office, you save money in the shop. And the thing that I want to emphasize to you is you need to build that marketing plan. You need to come up with a plan of how am I going to sell these bushels at a profit, and when can I do that? Things I think you need to know. I think you need to understand your cash flow. When do you need that money? What is your own cost of production? You need to get dialed in on those numbers. If you need examples of cost of production, the University of Illinois, Iowa State University, University of Missouri, all of those websites have really good cost of production calculators on them. I'm sure that Ruth and Carisha can help you with that at some point down the road. It's important for you to know your own cost of production. I think one other thing that is important is you need to understand the cost of money. 2 years ago, I would have told you that it wasn't nearly as important. But today with interest rates, if you're storing crops, that costs you money. Even if you own your own storage and you're storing that crop at home, it costs you money. And when we're talking about operating notes of 8% or even higher, that costs you money when you leave that product in the bin. And so you've got to understand that part of it. Your office time is very important. Figuring out this budget, figuring out your cash flow needs, and then getting your plan put together based off of when you have to have that sold and where you want to make those sales. So I'm sure you're going to visit a lot about crop insurance and understanding that crop insurance. I'm not going to go into great detail on crop insurance, but here's the part that I'm going to talk with you about. Once you make the decision on what your crop insurance is, we're setting that price right now. The month of February, we're going to set the spring starting price for corn and beans. And we will know what our crop insurance looks like come March 15th. You have to have it signed up for by then. So it's really important that once you pay or once you decide on that crop insurance, you use that as your backstop in building your marketing plan. You've got to take advantage of that because many times the best price for your corn and beans will happen in May and June while you're growing that crop. May, June, July are critical times for pricing. And a lot of times we will not want to price something that we do not know what we have. But that crop insurance gives you the backing to be able to go ahead and price that product ahead of time and take advantage of these rallies. We're seeing a rally right now that no one expected to see. And so we want to be able to take advantage of that. Today, Kayla and I were in the office here. We were working, with producers. We were getting some new crop beans sold. We were working on some new crop corn coverage, as well as what's in the bin. So we will tell you, depending on what type of crop insurance you take and what percentage you take, we would like for you to be making sales on what you haven't even planted yet. It's an important tool for us to build that marketing plan from. We're not ever going to tell you that we feel like you should Sell everything ahead of time. But certainly if you're taking an 80 or an 85% revenue type product, that is a really, well, first of all, it costs you money, and if you're not going to use it, you probably shouldn't pay for it. So it will enable you to take a look at your marketing and start marketing today on something that you haven't even planted yet. I think the other thing that you need to do right now is understand the marketing tools that are available to you. So we're gonna just jump right into this. When you purchase a revenue type of spring or revenue type of crop insurance, it's basically going to be 75, 80, 85% of your average production history, your APH. And so we know that we are insured against those bushels. And back in 1996, that is when they added a revenue type coverage, which enabled you to market before you grew that crop, because you're protected against that price rallying if you don't grow the bushels, okay? Something that you've got to remember, grain markets are trading up to 24 months out there. There's December 26 trading for corn. There's December 27 trading for corn. And so we can market well ahead of time. Now, I'm not marketing any 27 at this point. It's not very much trade out there in it, but you can do it. And it's actually about 10, maybe 12 cents less than where our December 25 corn is marketed or is trading today. How can I sell ahead? How can I sell this crop that I haven't grown yet? So these are some tools that I'm going to encourage you to go learn more about if you haven't used them. First of all, a cash forward contract. That is a contract that you would make with an elevator where you would typically sell your grain to. A hedge to arrive contract. That's another type of contract that an elevator would offer for you to use. And that hedge to arrive contract is essentially just locking in the Chicago Board of Trade price. It is selling futures. So those two are the same thing. The hedge to arrive contract is something that's offered by the elevator, and you can actually just sell futures on your own in your own account if you would decide you want to do that. Next, you can buy a put. We'll talk about that in a minute. Or you can do that cash forward contract, that one at the top, where you're committing to delivering to the elevator, and then you can buy a call. We're going to look at each one of these examples. So, hopefully you're not feeling like this, but I imagine if you haven't walked through any of these examples, you may be feeling like this young lady right now. We want to get the emotion out of the marketing. So let's get into this. The cash forward contract, there's two pieces to that puzzle. There is the futures price that's traded at the Chicago Board of Trade. It starts trading at 7 o'clock in the evening. It trades until 7:45 in the morning. It starts trading again at 8:30 in the morning and runs until 1:15 in the afternoon. That's when that is trading. That is what bases most of your corn and bean price, or wheat as well. So when we look at that, that is one piece of the puzzle of our forward price contract. Basis. Basis is how hungry is your local elevator or your local processor for that product. If it's right in the middle of harvest and they're getting bushels and they've got lines everywhere, they're not going to be nearly as hungry for that as they are in April or May when everyone's going to the field and planting and nobody has time to deliver. And so basis is just a reflection of your local price. So we have that futures price plus or minus basis gives us the cash price. We can do a cash forward contract with the elevator, and we are setting a price for delivery somewhere down the road. So right now, today, we were selling corn for March or April delivery. We've set that contract with the elevator. The farmer knows they have to deliver those bushels. They will get paid at the time they deliver them. All right? That's the most essential type of contract that you can do with an elevator. Selling futures or using a hedge to arrive contract. Again, The hedge to arrive contract is something that you can do with the elevator. It is exactly the same thing as selling futures if you had your own trading account. This protects you against the price going lower. So today, for example, we had offers working out there to sell December 25 corn that we're getting ready to plant. We had offers out there to make sales at $4.69. Those got hit today. So we got some corn sold for this crop that we're getting ready to plant. These actually work because if we decided we wanted to, we could deliver that corn physically to the Illinois River to meet this contract. Less than 2% of those contracts actually ever get delivered. Most of the time, what you're going to do is once you get ready to make that sale to your local elevator, you would make the sale to the elevator and then you would just buy this contract back in your trading account. The nice part about this is if the market goes down, you're locked in at that price. The negative part about this is if that price goes up, you are locked into this price. But you've got the physical corn that you are growing that you have insured to go against this contract. And so that's what makes us comfortable knowing that we can market ahead of time. Again, basis is that difference between my price and what the Chicago Board of Trade is trading at. All right. Basis is something that is very important. When I went to college, I spent a whole year just learning about basis and what that means and how I can use that in marketing. Basis is that important. I would encourage you to look at what your basis is for your local prices, corn, beans, wheat, cattle, hogs, and start getting very familiar with that. Try to find ways that you can get historical basis so you can see how if it's good or bad basis. Basis tells us we should be marketing or we should be storing. It's that simple. It's very black and white when it comes to marketing. Basis is the where, when, and how to sell, okay? Basis will bring corn bushels or bean bushels to a place where it's needed. And if they don't need it, then the basis won't be as good, okay? It is that important in your marketing. Another tool that you can use. At the elevator, you maybe want to ask about a guaranteed minimum price, a GMP, guaranteed minimum price contract. Or you can buy a put. And I'm going to show you an example of this. But a put option is a tool that you can have in your toolbox. Some elevators offer these. Otherwise, you can open a trading account and do these on your own. But it's going to give you a floor price. And when I told you about selling futures, the negative was if the market went higher, you were locked into this price. With a put option, this is going to give you a floor, but if the market rallies, you're going to gain in a market rally. You don't have to use the put option. You can go take the higher price. If the market goes down, you're locked in and you won't get any less than that price, okay? When you buy a put option, you know exactly what you're going to spend for it up front. There is no margin call against this, and it will, it protects you from the market going lower. And if you would happen to not grow the bushels because you had a crop disaster, then you're not out anything other than what you pay for this put option. Very flexible, okay? Unlike if we sold futures, or if we made a cash forward contract. When we make that cash forward contract with the elevator, we have to deliver those bushels or we have to pay them for those bushels, okay? And it could be paying them the difference in the price plus, they may add some cost for covering their costs on top of that. Then one last tool I want to look at here in an example here in the last 10 minutes is selling this grain and then buying a callback to give you the upside back. So again, if I make that cash forward contract with the elevator, I'm locked in on those bushels. And then if I buy a call in my account, or some elevators will allow me to do this through them, this gives me the upside back on those bushels if the market continues to go higher. And today we were pulling money out of the market by rolling our calls higher on the corn market, on calls that we bought clear back in harvest. That just gave the farmer the upside back when they had to sell those bushels out of the field. Okay. Again, this is a limited risk type of a trade that you can make in your trading account, and or talk with your elevator about being able to make your sale and then buy a call back over the top. All right, let's look at some examples and then I want to get to your questions. So these were some examples from last week. Last week I was looking at making a sale to the elevator on bushels I'm getting ready to grow. We could sell at $4.50 last week cash. So I knew I would have my bushels sold. I was going to deliver them in October on my forward cash contract. $4.50. I deliver those bushels in October. I'm going to get paid $4.50. And I bought a call, a $5 call over the top of that in case the market continues to go up. Here's what I want you to look at in each one of these examples. Let's just say that the price goes to $6 on corn for whatever reason. The value of my call is $1. I paid 26 cents for it. That raised my price from $4.50 that I got from the elevator, and it made it $5.24. It kept me in the market until Thanksgiving of this coming year. I'm still in the market if the market goes up. If the market goes down, here's the example. If the market goes to $4, my call is now worth nothing. I paid 26 cents for it, and my net sale is $4.24. I'll get nothing less than $4.24 because I sold the corn for $4.50 and I spent this 26 cents to have upside till Thanksgiving. Next one. I forward sell a December hedge to arrive contract. That's one of those other contracts that I was looking at. Last week when I looked at this, I could do it at $4.64. Today we were doing it at $4.69. It's trading higher this week. Last week I would have bought this $5 call. I paid 26 cents for it. If the market went up to $6, I gained $1. I spent that 26 cents. My net sale, this is not including any plus or minus basis. My net sale on that is $5.38. If the market goes down, my net sale is $4.38. So the first example we looked at was a cash forward contract that had the Chicago Board of Trade price, my basis out, and that was my cash price. This one, I'm only setting the Chicago Board of Trade price. There's a number of different reasons why we would do that, but I just wanted to show you both of them and how they looked. Here's a bean example. Last week we looked at selling December beans that we're getting ready to plant at $10.51. And we wanted some upside back on that. So we bought, either through the elevator or through your own account, we bought a November 1080 call. And we said, if it goes above 1260, we'll be all right. Doesn't matter. We don't want to, we're going to cheapen this thing up enough that it makes it a little more palatable by saying if it goes above 1260, I'm okay. I don't need to gain it all. So I paid 38 cents for that. If the price goes up to $12, I'm going to gain $1.20 on my call option. It cost me 38 cents. My net sale becomes $11.33 instead of $10.51. If the price goes down to $9, I spent that 38 cents to have that upside. I didn't use it. My minimum price that I will get is $10.13. One last example here. And this is just an example of buying a put, one of those other tools we talked about. Last week we could buy a July short date $4.50 put, spending 19 cents for that. If the price goes up to $5.75, I get to take the higher price. I've spent that 19 cents. My net sale is $5.56. If the price goes down to $3.50, I'm covered at $4.50 minus my 19 cents. So my minimum price is $4.31. So all of these tools, and again, remember, my job is just to pique your interest, get you started to think about why and how to build that marketing plan. And I want to talk with you just a little bit in these last few minutes about your marketing tools and what you can do to build that marketing plan. You need to be able to take advantage of the crop insurance. So, taking advantage of that, I'm making sales today on a crop that I haven't grown yet. Now, how many bushel would I do? What percent would I do? Everybody's a little bit different. We have customers in Missouri and Iowa and Illinois and Indiana. Everyone's in a little bit different position. And it just takes me time to get to know that customer to help them build that marketing plan. Here's some things I think you need to work on. First of all, go find out what tools are available at your elevator and where you sell to. Find out what those tools are. Secondly, know your costs. Know what your production costs are. Know when you need to move those products. So work through some targets. Once you know what those costs are, let's say that your cost of production is $4.25, and today you can sell corn for $4.60 or $4.70. Should you be making sales? Can you make sales ahead of time? You can make sales ahead of time because you have that crop insurance backing you up if you do not grow the crop, okay? Next, execute with target offers. Have offers working at the elevator. Understand the types of tools that you have available at the elevator, all right? And then reach out to people around you that understand this. The things that I don't want you to do, I don't want you to try to guess what this market is going to do because that brings emotion into it. We want you to stay balanced and not emotional when you build this marketing plan. Last thing I threw in here was just an example, and I just pulled the last example that I worked on. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why I pulled this. This is a family farming operation, but I do almost everything with the wife in this operation. One time a year, we sit down as the whole family, and then we write out the marketing plan, but she is the executor of the marketing plan. And so I just wanted to tell you that and show you. This is a marketing plan that we sat down, we wrote out, we have our target offers working, we know how we're going to manage this. And I'm going to tell you this, don't let those bushels in this intimidate you. You can knock this down. And let's say you grow 20,000 bushel of corn or 10,000 bushel of corn. You still need to have a marketing plan. It's just you're going to knock some zeros off of what we have put together here. All right. You can kind of look through this, but we basically set offers that we have working with the elevator. We have a portion of this that's going to get marketed through their account that they work with us, Kayla and myself. And then we have targets on when we want to have a certain amount sold by and or covered with put options. And so we sat down, we wrote this out about 3 weeks ago, and we're just executing as it goes along. All right. I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to turn it back over so that we can look at questions.
Okay, we have a question, and this is kind of a lengthy one, so I'm going to read it slowly, Toni. It's, how do you calculate your insured level of production in bushels when you utilize a revenue insurance policy? Given that the price may move up or down over the course of the production period, ending at an unknown level at harvest, it would seem that the number of insured bushels would fluctuate with prices. Is it true that you have fewer insured bushels if price moves higher, but more insured bushels if price declines with revenue insurance?
Okay, so Carisha, is there someone is going to come in and talk about crop insurance in particular in these?
We have a lot of different
Okay.
topics over the course of this webinar series. So yes,
Okay.
crop insurance will be hit on in more detail.
Yes. Okay. So let's just talk about this. This is how it's going to work. You have an average production history, an APH. That is what you're going to insure against. And so the level of production will not change. The average production history is what you take times the amount of crop insurance that you're buying. So let's just say that you're going to take 80%. And if your APH for your average production history for the last 5 years is 175 bushel an acre, you take 175 times 0.8, and that is your insured bushel amount. That will not fluctuate. That's why you can go out and market against this. And this is a great question, even though I'm not the crop insurance person. That is why we can market against it, because we know, A, we have this insured production. So if I just took that and I said, I have 175 bushel APH and I'm buying 80% crop insurance, that means I can comfortably market 140 bushel to the acre. All right. My revenue piece of that is being set today. It's being set in the month of February. The average price of December corn for the month of February. Let's say it comes in at $4.60. That's about what the average is right now today. 140 bushel times $4.60. My revenue coverage per acre is $644 per acre if my APH is 175 bushels and I take 80% coverage. I'm sure there'll be more people walk you through this, but from a building the marketing plan, I know that I can market up to 140 bushel an acre and be comfortable because that is what is backing my crop insurance. Now, the next piece to this puzzle is not only do you get the spring starting price, let's say it's 460, whatever that average is for the month of February, then come fall, you're going to get the average price of December corn in the month of October. And so let's say that corn rallies up to $6 because we didn't grow as many bushels as we thought. Then my calculated revenue backing me is 175 times, if I took 80%, that's 140 bushels. And if the fall average is $6, then my revenue guarantee goes up. It's based off of the higher of the fall or the spring price. If the spring price is higher than the fall price, I get that one. If the fall price is higher than the spring price, I get that price. Therefore, I know I can comfortably market crop anytime once I take this because I've got that insurance backing me on whatever percentage of my APH I took and the revenue portion of that as well. When we only had insurance that covered us on yield and not price, you couldn't really market very well ahead of time. But when they changed that product to protecting the revenue piece of this as well, that is what enables you to market ahead of time. Because if the price rallies and you don't grow the bushels, then you're going to get the higher price in the fall. Does that answer the question, Carisha?
I think that was a great job of answering it. We'll see if the person has anything else. Yes, they indicated yes in chat. Thank you. And another question, how do you go about finding someone to work with, like yourself, whether it's a broker, um, maybe a grain merchandiser at an elevator? Like, how do you find those folks?
So I think it's really important. You've got to have that management team around you. And I think your management team, when it comes to grain and livestock, as far as that goes, your lender, I would also reach out to some university, like extension people, to find out who resources would be. You need to find out who and work with a local merchandiser who's buying your product. Don't be afraid to ask them for some resources. It's kind of interesting. My brother farmed for years, and you know, before I started doing this job, he was like, Toni, I just don't like the people that are buying my crop to tell me how to market it. It just doesn't feel right. And I'm like, I understand that. I get that. And so it's kind of hard for you to go to them and ask them for advice, but at least go to them and ask them what the tools are. And then once you find out what tools you have available to you, then reach out to people that you trust. And I would ask for references when it comes to, working with a broker. I would talk with my lender and see who they would recommend. I would talk with ag instructors in your area or at your land grant institution. They may be able to help you as well. So there's a number of places that you can go to get references and resources.
Toni. The next question. So far, I have done cash sales only. I have no on-farm storage. Want to do the lowest risk pre-sale starting out. Wants to do the lowest risk pre-sale starting out. Is GMP a good way to start out? Then I would just be out of fees. And is there a date to cancel the sale by?
So on that one, when you run that through an elevator, that's the difference between having your own account and doing a guaranteed minimum price contract through an elevator. When you run the GMP through the elevator, you are committing the bushels to the elevator. That's step one. Step two is if you don't want to commit those bushels to the elevator, that's where you would open your own trading account and buy a put option on your own using the trading account to do that. When you do it through your own account, there's no commitment on those bushels. Okay? The only thing you would be out is what you pay for the put option. If you do it through the elevator, you're committing the bushels to the elevator. That you wouldn't be able to cancel. That is where the crop insurance comes into play and backs you up if you do not grow the bushels. Okay? So essentially it's the same tool, but when you run something through an elevator, you're committing those bushels to the elevator. If you run it through your own account, the benefit is you aren't committed to delivering those bushels to anyone. Okay? The benefit of running it through the elevator is you don't have to open an account and you don't have to pay for it up front. If you run it through your own account, you're going to have to open an account with somebody or online even. And I would tell you, I would work with someone for a while at minimum so that you start to understand those tools before you ever try to go trade this stuff online by yourself. Okay? Now, is there a date to cancel by? Okay, so let's say that we market ahead of time and we sell 20,000 bushel and we only end up growing 15,000 bushel. I can see that happening in beans. Really pretty easy, okay? If you know that you are not going to be able to fulfill the contract with the elevator, my suggestion is to you, first of all, to talk to your insurance person to find out, make sure that they know you have a claim, that you're going to be working on a claim, and then you need to be sitting down and finding out where you're insured at, the level and what you have insured. And then you need to reach out to the elevator and, if let's say that you made those sales and the price went lower. I had that happen this year. They had oversold on some bushels. But the price that they sold the bushels at was actually higher than where the price ended up being at. Now, you might think this is nice. The elevator just forgive that. Well, The elevator forgave it because there was actually a gain on the contract. So the elevator just took that gain and kept it for themselves and relieved the farmer from those bushels. Now, if the price went up, you're going to get a check from your insurance company on bushels that you had insured. You take a portion of that check and you're going to go pay the elevator back for the bushels that you are short. That's why the crop insurance works. I've had to work through that several years. I mean, we've had river floods and wiped out all of our bottom crops. And that's happened to me 3 times in the last 25 years. And I think 2000, oh, I can't remember which one it was, but when the Mississippi levee broke, I had a lot of people that had corn sold ahead of time, and we relied very heavily on the insurance. And between myself being a broker and the farmer and the insurance person, we just sat down and worked out a plan because we knew in July we lost those bushels. And so that customer had bushels forward sold. So we just put a plan together to cover him. So it was 1993. Thanks for that reminder, Ruth. It was 1993.
The follow-up to that previous question is my concern with paying the elevator is that there won't be money left over for my expenses and prepayments next year.
So that is a great concern. And if you look back through these slides when you get the copy, you note in there, I tell you, do not forward sell every bushel that you expect to grow. I've got some people that can get very aggressive doing that, but I do not recommend it. I do not recommend that you go out there and sell up to your insured production level. I think it's much better to, use it, but, be wise about it as well, because we don't want to take that check that we get from the insurance and write it all over to the elevator and not have something to pay for our inputs. There's a happy medium there, okay? And also it depends on your productivity. I mean, I've got ground that we might grow 25 or 30 bushel an acre beans, and I've got ground that we could grow 95 bushel an acre beans. Those marketing plans look different. And it's not because they're not taking the same type of crop insurance. They're taking a revenue type of crop insurance. I just know the variability of those soil types, and you're going to know the variability of your soil types. Now, does that mean you shouldn't sell ahead? No. You need to take advantage of that crop insurance and make some sales ahead of time, but just stay balanced.
Are there any other questions? This is last call for questions. I'm not seeing any pop up. Toni, thank you so much for your time tonight and all the knowledge that you've shared with us. We will be sharing out a copy of Toni's slides, so you'll receive those via email. And if you go home tonight and you're trying to digest all this information and you're like, what did she say? Or I wish I could hear this again, you can. We are recording this webinar and it will be available on our Annie's Project YouTube channel. So you can go to YouTube, search for us, and you'll be able to watch this recording and all of the other recordings in our webinar series, as well as some other useful information. We have a lot of programs, a lot of highlights, showcases throughout the year. So while you're on our YouTube channel, why don't you scroll through and check out some of the other things that we have available. So thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate you all joining us and hope that you join us again. Next week, our topic is going to be using the pasture rangeland forage insurance product to address insufficient rainfall risk. So again, it's next Tuesday, February the 11th at 6:30. Have a great evening, everyone.